Thank you everyone for taking the time to join me today. We have quite a few people on here, about 21 people watching so far. Really appreciate it. Rocky Cola, thanks for joining. Kevin, always good to see you, man. Really appreciate you. Jeff, good to see you, man. Bert, thanks for joining us. That's Roberta, in case you guys don't know. She's my sweetheart, my wife. Bill, always good to see you, man. And Tuffy, so where are you all from? I see there that Tuffy is from Lakeland, Florida. Kevin, of course, is from Lakeland, Florida. And Jeff is from Panama City. So always good to see you guys. Always awesome that you guys take a little bit of your time to hang out with me. So that was kind of a really long intro. And what I wanted to show there with everyone and share with everyone were a wide variety of shots. Some of them were lit, some of them were in mixed light, some of them were natural light, some of them were both artificial, and then some professional lights mixed in. And I just wanted to show sort of how these different LUTs perform. And I think it's worth noting just how awesome CLog3 can be. And this is something that was very new to me. So Dubja, he's from Richmond, Virginia. Good to see you, man. P3 TV, are you selling the LUT pack? Yeah, yes, it's the link's in the description. So yes, we are selling them. Hello from Brooklyn. Will, good to see you, man. Really appreciate you. Mickey, North Alabama. Awesome. Very cool. Bill from Chicago, which I know Bill. So yes, thank you for joining, Bill. And Detroit's in the house, P3 TV. Awesome. So, in the past, you guys have heard me say that I generally love and would rather or prefer to always and only shoot in CLog2. It gives me the most amount of flexibility, and that is still true. But what I didn't realize until I started going down this rabbit hole, which, by the way, to get us to where we are today, Kenneth from Finland, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. And you, sir, from Switzerland. Wow. Awesome. This is really, really cool. You guys are like literally from all over the world. London's in the house. Awesome. And as I was saying, like to get us to this point, it's really been, about a 6-month process. And the main reason is that, one, I had to get out of my comfort zone and stop shooting in CLog2 or stop processing my RAW in CLog2 and start processing it as CLog3, and then embracing the difference in how you expose for CLog3 to make sure that if you have information in the dark area of the image that you want to preserve, that you don't crush that information. And I think that that's that was a mental shift that had to happen for me. And once I did it, and you guys saw from those clips, and I'm going to be playing them here in the background so that, I'll have like a smaller version of me just talking through them so you guys can see how these LUTs perform in these different scenes without super fast cuts. But again, what I was saying is that I was really impressed as to how well CLog3 is able to handle the entire range of what the camera can capture. Everything from the dark areas to the highlights and the way that the highlights actually do roll off instead of what I'm used to or was used to with CLog2, where CLog2 shows you the super whites and then there's a hard shelf because they clip. Whereas with CLog3, you get a much more gradual roll off. So it gave me this huge different appreciation of what's possible with CLog3, and also a much deeper understanding of why Canon would choose to put CLog3 into their cameras and maybe not lead or lean in to CLog2 as the primary way to capture. Because let's face it, We're living in a time, in an age where we can get a good image, assuming we know how to expose. We can get a good image from basically any type of camera or capture device, right? But how many of those capture devices make it really easy for us to deliver our final product with relative little or no work? And I think that's where Canon shines. You know, you guys know that I love red cameras. I shoot with red cameras every single day. I bang on those cameras between 35 and 55 hours, all three of them, every single week. So I'm very familiar. I really enjoy that color, right? But now that I understand the Canon color better than I did a year ago, better than I did 3 years ago, that's where these LUTs come into play. This is the evolution of my own learning and then translating it into what the camera is able to do. And I'm now able to get the same vibrant colors, deep, rich colors, like what you guys are seeing here, right? With the green, the blue. My skin tone it's kind of in a good space. I'm able to do that with CLog3, and I'm able to do it relatively easy. And that's really, again, why it is that I'm so excited, and I wanted to make sure that I shared these tools. If you guys follow the channel, you know that I made a video talking about Canon's blue channel problem. This is not something new. This is something that I had noticed several years ago. I'm going to say many years. It's been more than 5 when I noticed it. And getting around that problem, sometimes it's easy to overlook it when you're just, trying to edit and trying to deliver your project. But for someone like me who fixates on something and then you can't unsee it anymore, it was always something that kind of ate away at the insides. And not that it's, how can I say this? Some people are okay with it. So color is subjective. So let's get that straight. But for me, it was something that I was not seeing, especially when I compared it to my red cameras. I wasn't seeing those problems with footage from a red camera. So I went out to try to fix it, which is what kind of started me down that rabbit hole. And in that whole attempt to fix it is when I did the whole video saying, hey, Canon's got a blue problem. And by the way, if you want to fix it, this is how you fix it. And I basically took footage. I remapped the primaries and the secondary colors. And then I applied a Rec. 709 conversion. I fixed the saturation problem. And then I created what I call the broadcast and streaming LUT, which you guys saw in the intro. And more than 700 of you asked for a free copy of it, which I was very happy to give out to everyone. Because let's be honest, if you're shooting content for social media, there's nothing that's going to make it easier than being able to monitor what you're going to actually see in post, but still shoot in log to make sure that you get the most out of your camera, out of your sensor, and create a differentiator for you from everybody else who you're competing against. Now, I will say this. On YouTube, the popular brand is Sony. And that's because of how much Sony embraces sponsorships and supports creators on YouTube, because that helps Sony sell more cameras. But I will tell you, first off, I've tried their cameras, and you guys know that. And I know a lot of people that have switched from Canon to Sony and then switched back to Canon. And I know a lot of people that stick with Sony, some who I used to call friends that I don't anymore, not for any reason other than they decided to just create separation from me and from what I have to say, which is fine. But the reason why they're in bed with Sony is because Sony gave them cameras. Sony gave them lenses. Sony pays for sponsored content on their YouTube channels. But make no mistake about it, I have been on the receiving end when I hear complaints about what it does to their skin, how their colors are not quite there, how they still have to tweak, how they've made improvements but are not where they want to end up. And even one of my buddies who, because of his workflow, really does need to shoot on Sony. He does stills primarily, but he often refers to his own skin tones as Oompa Loompa skin tones. And I think that that's something that it's not easy to avoid when the color science that is built in the image processing that is built into a camera is asking for those things. On the flip side, on the Canon side, the whole idea of this blue problem and the oversaturated reds, that is a fact, right? That is, if you're shooting in CLog3, Canon C.Gamut with the neutral color matrix, expect that your primaries are not going to be on target. And the only way around that is for you to take a moment to fix them. And that's kind of what I did with my LUT pack. So let me just catch up because I see Brian joined in. Thanks for joining, brother. Really appreciate it. Eduardo, awesome to see you. Cam, dude, thanks for stopping by, dude. Really appreciate it. So make sure you guys pay attention to what Cam's saying in the comments about him testing something on Sony, and apparently there isn't any issues. So just make sure, like, don't ever take any one person's view of any situation and then assume that that's gospel, because the fact is that it isn't. We're all different. We all shoot different. Our needs are different. And for example, I'm a big fan of the way that Cam grades his footage, his style of shooting, but I can't apply his style to the corporate work that I'm doing. It's because the expectation from my client is different, but it doesn't mean I'm not a fan. I'm a huge fan because I really do love that whole style of things. So, before I just get really, really long-winded, I'm going to play in the background some of these clips so that you guys can see here. Let's see, how am I going to do this? I'm going to go here, and then just bear with me. Okay, so let's play this one. All right, so here's what you guys need to know about my LUT pack. My LUT pack is not only correcting and remapping all the primaries and secondaries to their appropriate targets, but it is also leveraging color contrast and color theory. So this LUT that we're looking at right now is called tres, right? Number 3. And what tres means is that it is not only taking complementary opposite primary colors and then accentuating them, but it is also then taking a secondary color that then complements the 2 primaries. And the way that color theory and color contrast help is that they are intended, and I'm not a professor of this stuff, but if you study color theory and color contrast, what you hear very often is that choosing what those primary targets are and what that secondary complementary target might be. It's a way to bring out emotion out of a scene that helps you then tell the story. And I think that that should be the biggest takeaway from today's live and from this LUT pack. It isn't just a way of stylizing something in a way that looks cool to me. Yes, in a lot of cases, that is exactly what we're looking at, something that looks really cool to me. But it is also then applying at a technical level color contrast and color theory to truly complement that LUT. And the only thing that you need to worry about is to make sure that you exposed the way that you intended to capture. If you need detail in the shadows, you exposed for the shadows. If you have windows in the background and you're afraid or you need to preserve the information on the other side of those windows, that you exposed properly. So if you expose properly, and then the second thing, of course, is you have the correct white balance applied, then truly all you have to do is drop any one of these LUTs and you will end up with an image that is ready for delivery. And that is, I think that that's the power of these types of LUTs. So again, this was tres, right? So it's taking advantage of two primaries, one secondary color, and then dropping. Let me just make sure that I don't have any messages that I'm missing. So I lost my mouse. Isn't this awesome? I don't have a mouse, so this is really cool. No, it is not cool. And there is no way for me to get it back. How can that be? Let's see if this works. Okay, so that was weird. Now it came back. Let's see. Go back here. So bear with me all for, I'm producing my own show. My producer is off today. Oh, and happy anniversary to all of you. Yeah. Thank you there, Cam. Really appreciate that comment. I guess I could have brought up your other comment earlier. What am I thinking? Chris Bird, yo, good to see you. Loud and clear. You're talking to Cam. That's good. Okay, so tres is one of my favorite LUTs. One new LUT that I want to definitely show you all is going to be, let's see if I can make myself lose my thing again. It's called La La Land. And the reason why it's called La La Land is because I'm from LA. So LA land. So I thought La La Land would be a good thing. So this is a LUT that, or a version of the LUT that I've been using for a really long time. And never released it because, let's be honest, we're all a little selfish, and I was a little selfish. So I wanted to keep some of the tools that I use to myself. And that's the main reason why I didn't release it. And I thought, if I'm going to stay true to this whole idea of all of us leveling up together, then I can't be selfish that way. And that's the reason why it's included in this LUT, or in this LUT pack. And what this does is it adds more contrast, so it's punchier, not quite as much as Punch It, right? So it dials that back some, but it is a higher contrast with the tando effect, right? That teal and orange type of stylization, but again, dialed back just a tad, but accentuated through higher contrast. And this, to me, is one of those LUTs that I can literally drop onto any social media type of content project. I don't care if it's a high-end jewelry store, a dealership, a construction company, a dentist. I mean, you name it, anything corporate-wide or corporate-ish type work, I can drop it and it looks good on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok, which we're doing some TikTok production now. Like I would have, if you would have told me that we were going to be doing TikTok production for companies 2 years ago, I would have been like, I think we're going to stay away from that. And that's just not the case. We're doing a lot more of it, which is one of the reasons why we then picked up the C70 again and brought it back. But you can see the colors, right? You can see that added contrast just makes whatever we're shooting pop. You can see it, they're working on the screen. And you look at the shadows, and by the way, none of these clips received any denoising. So there is zero denoising going on. They were all captured in CLog3 on the R5C. And I mean, the sky's there, which also, this is going to bring up something else that I remember a lot of the Sony people complaining about or whining or saying that the R5C was horrible at, and that is dynamic range. And you guys are going to see here as when we go to the pinball scene. So all the pinball tables, there's like zero light other than window light. And you can see those in the background. But do you see any problems with dynamic range? I mean, this camera is seeing straight into the deep end of that brewery without any issues. The dynamic range is not a problem. The highlight roll-off in CLog3 is not a problem because it eliminates that shelving that happens in the super whites on CLog2. So, I mean, look at the window. The window's bloomed a little bit, and that's part because of the LUT that I'm using. But you can still see that there is color information on the other side of those windows when I'm inside. And I'm only using the window light to light this scene in the building. That's pretty amazing. This is one of the reasons. Here's another shot where zero, well, I guess there is that one light strip up there, but to your eyes, like this looks brighter than what my eyes were seeing when I was there. And then look at all of the metal and the way that the specular highlights don't clip. That's kind of amazing. And one of the reasons why I really like this LUT, and I really like the way that CLog3 behaves. I was asked earlier if CLog3, if this was only for the R5C CLog3. And the answer is, that is what the intent was. And when I began sharing the LUTs with people in our community, people like you and I, who own not just an R5C, but also a C70 and other cameras that shoot in CLog3, they were using them and sharing screen grabs with me, which I'll make a video about that later. They were sharing screen grabs with me where these LUTs are basically, if you expose properly for CLog3, for what you want to capture, and you nail the white balance, they are behaving the same way across multiple cameras. And at this point, the screen grabs that I've seen from projects that other people shot where they applied my LUTs are the C70, the R3, the R6 Mark II, R5, and R5C. So I think that's a really good thing. And again, just the way that the color is handled and the way that, you know, whites stay white, you still know that you're looking at something white. I think that's kind of cool. But I think you guys get the hang of what that LUT is. So let me jump back into the comments. Let's see. Why shoot in C.Gamut if you like me, probably grade on 709 monitor, end up transforming to 709 and end up delivering 709 when I just shoot in CLog3 BT 709. The reason why is because I don't get everything out of the sensor when I do that. I do not grade on a BT 709 monitor. I grade on the Pro XDR display by Apple, and the color gamut is DCI-P3. So that is what my daily driver monitor is. I use that for all the work that I do. And you're right, I do deliver to a container of Rec 709, but I have more flexibility and I can produce a more unique image when I have more color information and then choose how it is that I want the luminance of all of those different color values to show up in my scene, rather than be stuck with a clamped signal on the highlights and a clamped signal on the shadows. And for Canon to decide where to place the different values in my tonal curve. Because if I did that, then I wouldn't have rich blue. I would have rich purple. And this shirt would show up as purple in my footage, because that is part of the problem. Just like the blue squares on the back of in my background here, they would also not show up as true blue, even though they are blue. And anything else that you have that is emitting blue light would also then suffer from that. In skin tones, the ratio of how much red saturation Canon image processing applies, it's almost 30% more than what I would apply under any circumstance. Like, I don't care if the person in front of the camera is white, brown, dark, or anything in between. What I see in my eye is what I want to see out of my image, and that's not always true when I allow the camera to make decisions for me. Sometimes it works. Most time, for me, it doesn't. So that's the main reason. So yeah, WJ's World. So far, these work great on the R5, R5C, C70, C300 Mark III, and the R6 Mark II. Those are the ones that people in the wild have tested. I've only personally tested the C70 and the R5 and the R5C. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. So let me show you Tando, this is one of those LUTs that I've seen it from members of the community show up in a lot of different projects. And I'm really proud that you guys trust me enough to use them on your projects, especially public facing projects. So I really do appreciate that. So let's take a quick look at what that looks like. And let's see, Tando. Where's Tando? And there's Tando. So you could definitely see that the teal and orange, they're pretty strong, right? So this is what I call my control clip. And this is the reason why I include it on every single one of these different scenes. I am going to upload each individual, 4 or 5 minute montage of clips with each of the different LUTs applied in case anybody is interested in looking at them specifically. But really where I'm at this point is these can continue to improve with your feedback. And I'm going to have Bert pick any one person who is in the chat randomly so that we can then contact you and give you a free set of all of these LUTs. And we're going to do that every time that we do a live stream. Actually, I'm going to do that every time that I upload a video. I think that that's just the right way of continuing to help the community, do what we do. I also want to send a super special thanks to Scotty, who has been above and beyond helpful when it comes to feedback and sharing information on his use case and how these LUTs perform for him. I really, I don't know how else to say this, but I feel guilty that I didn't pay you because of how much feedback you've provided relative to what I expected. And I'm just really appreciative of you and everyone in the community. But yeah, let's speed this up so we can see the inside again, and you can see. I mean, Tendo it's a nice LUT. It's just a very stylized LUT that doesn't really fit every single project, but it definitely fits some projects and some people who are working on, short narrative pieces. This is something that could absolutely work for you. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have expressed to me how much they like these LUTs. So let's just, I need to see if we have any comments because I hear the comments coming in, but I can't see them when this is happening because I'm sharing my screen. So a couple more clips here. I just really like the way that the highlights are not, they're not, how do I say this? They're not distracting to where they take away from the scene. And I think that that's a really good point. And the only other person who I've seen on YouTube have a set of LUTs that perform like this is Cam. And this is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of Cam and Cam's work. So everybody else seems to they seem to create their LUT pack using Premiere Pro, and maybe that works for a lot of people, but I guess it doesn't for me. It's probably the best way to say it without sounding like a total jerk. Yeah, I don't have any issue with dynamic range on CLog3, and I used to think that I did, and I'm glad to say that I was wrong. No problems whatsoever. Okay, so we got more comments here. Can you explain a little bit about the highlight shelving on CLog2 versus CLog3? Sure. So CLog2 uses the full range, which goes into the super whites. So that is above 100 IRE. So once the sensor can no longer hang on to any color information, it just flat out shelves. So it clips. And that's why we see in the waveform on CLog2, when you're processing CLog2, some very stiff, hard shelves. Whereas with CLog3, we don't have that problem because we're not trying to retain information into the super whites. So that extra information that in broadcast, by the way, gets completely thrown out, like it never even makes it down the pipeline of what we see on television. That information is not, we're not trying to retain it in CLog3. So we don't see those super hard shelving things unless you purposely attempt to clip the highlights. And that's the biggest difference. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that that was what you were asking. Yeah, so I'd be interested to hear what Cam has to say about that. I'm one of those people where I don't pretend to be able to tell a company what to do with their assets and how it is that they deal with their intellectual property or their research and development. So for me personally, if a tool is helping me make money, then something like buying an expensive lens, like who cares? Because I'm making money, right? If a lens is $5,000, but my average project is 90, who cares? That's kind of how I think. I think that where it Where it stings is where someone who wants to get into the industry has a more difficult time getting those higher paying projects to be able to justify the investment into higher end glass. And to that, this is what I have to say. We've all started somewhere. Most of us, in fact, I'm going to show you what I started with, and you're going to laugh, but I think it's worth it. So hang on. This is funny. So I'm not talking about when I was making movies, as a teenager or anything like that. I'm talking about the very first commercial, like that aired on television commercial for a media group that I shot on a green screen. There were some B-roll and things that were also a part of it. And I wish I had the commercial to show you guys here. But this is the true story. It was shot on this. So I had another version of this. It was a 720p camcorder that I used to use for personal projects. And then out of the blue, one of my clients needed a commercial to air, and it was very quick turnaround. Like, it had to happen within a day or two. And Best Buy had this Sony camcorder that could shoot in full HD. So this is a 1080 camcorder. And I was like, well, shit. And at the time, broadcast, we were delivering for broadcast at 720. So I shot with this thing, downscaled 1080 to 720. The campaign was successful. And that was the start of my career into the commercial space. And it was shot on this Handycam. Sony at that. Super, super interesting. Very difficult to work with in post-production at the time, but we made it work. Fast forward about, I don't know, I don't even know what the right amount would be, maybe a month or two, and we actually bought a real Sony camcorder, and that was our main workhorse. And then as soon as, I'm guessing within a year or so, as soon as Canon released this guy, so this is the OG C100. Picked one up. This became the workhorse. And once we had enough under our belt to be able to afford, we jumped straight into the C300. And basically the C300 built the company that I'm now running for video production. We built it on the back of C300s. But like I said, we all started somewhere, right? So if somebody wants to get into the industry, I think my biggest advice is sort out how to get into the industry. You don't need a full frame camera to start getting paid to do your work. There are lots of other things that you need to learn before you start, pixel peeping like a lot of us. You need to understand composition. You need to understand story. You need to understand scheduling, production, how to direct people. Like, those are all things that are going to add production value to your content. And then consider this. If you're delivering to Instagram, for example, I mean, you're lucky if you're able to see the content in 720p. So worrying about shooting in 4K or 6K or 8K, if you're delivering to Instagram, it's kind of a waste. If you're delivering to broadcast, even if you provide a 4K finished file, they will downsample to 1080 and then re-upscale at the actual source to 4K if someone is paying for 4K content delivery. If you're delivering to anything, any channel that is being viewed through satellite, so I'm talking specifically Dish and DirecTV, 720. They will dumb down anything that you provide and dumb it down to 720 so that they can have enough bandwidth to send it up to the satellite and then deliver it to somebody's house. And then in their box, they will upscale that 720 to 1080 or 4K. And we've all seen what 4K looks like when we're streaming from Netflix, right? You want to talk about banding and blocking and all these other problems? That's the reality of it. So worrying about how much a lens costs and why I am or am not going to get into a system, really, when you're starting out, that shouldn't be the main focus, because it's kind of like buying, I don't know, it's like you're way too far ahead of where you are for that to be a legitimate concern, in my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong. I love gear. You guys know I love gear. Hell, you guys can see how many cameras are back there. And then I just showed you two more, and I'm using one. And you know, in the studio, like there's a podcast studio there. Like, I understand how cool gear is. But gear is not what gets us paid clients. Gear is not what allows us to have a crew, or in my case, 3 crews that are kept busy on a weekly basis. Gear is just a tool that helps us get to that endpoint. And there are plenty, and I think I've done on my channel a couple of examples of where even on Komodo, with Komodo's autofocus features, how those very inexpensive Canon RF lenses perform, and they do a good job. I mean, they do a good enough job for basically anything other than visual effects and motion picture work. Are they as easy to work with as a cine lens? No, but also I'm from, you know, that older school of autofocus is not really something that I've ever relied on. So maybe that's one of the reasons why it is that I have my own biases. But yeah, that's kind of where I fall into that arena here. Let's see. 709 is great for manual grading and matching older cameras. C.Gamut is great for maximum quality. And, you know, again, so to Bob's point, and here's, you guys have heard me say this before, and I think even Bert, when she's been on a live with me, she's told you all how I am competitive, right? I am competitive. I'm not going to downplay that. And I realize that in my market, even if I'm shooting on the most expensive camera available in the world, even if I was, I'm not, but even if I was, there will always be someone who can be available when I'm not available, when none of my crews are available, and or who can do it at 10, 15, or 20% of what I charge. So how do I then increase the perceived value of what it is that I'm doing to make the same person who is hearing messages from me, as well as someone who can do it for a fraction of the cost, or says they can for a fraction of the cost? How do I then establish a difference? And the only way to establish a difference is by building what I call competitive barriers. And quality is one of them. If I show up with my rigged out camera and I am slating and I have time code and I have more than one angle, I don't know how to say this kindly, okay? So understand that this is not intended to put anyone down in any way. But when a client sees their name on a slate, or when a client sees that your producer, in my case, my producer, arranged for a snack bar on set so that they have water, cookies, treats, or whatever during our production day, they don't forget that. And the ones who have tried to go with the budget option have always come back and said, we really like the way that you helped us work through our script, the way that you helped us visualize the project before we showed up. We like to know that you had it handled up to the second, every single thing that you were doing. And I think Cam has talked about this in some of his videos where somebody on his crew helps him make sure that every possible situation has been thought through to make sure that someone feels good. But then also you couple the professionalism, the being prepared, the gear that you're showing up with, a crew that you're showing up with, and then the pampering and the little extras that make that client feel like they are the film superstar. And then they see the quality of what you're able to finish and deliver. It makes a difference. And it makes enough of a difference to where clients won't choose the budget option. Because Loud and Clear, who you guys have seen here in the chat, his name is Brian. He has often said being the cheapest person is a race to the bottom. And a race to the bottom hurts you and potentially hurts your client. Because once your content makes it onto the web, even if you didn't have your logo on it, guaranteed everyone within that community space is going to know that either you did a great job or you really screwed the pooch. And that's the main reason why, for someone like me, quality will always trump anything else. Because if all of my content, if everything that I deliver is of higher quality, then I can be proud of it. And if a client chooses to go a different direction because I'm too expensive is something that I'm willing and living with, versus I screwed the pooch and delivered something that was subpar. So that's the main reason. Let's see. I shoot some stuff in NYE and R6, CLog3, C.Gamut, Utopia LUT, Phantom work great, and I'll try Carlos too. So I've heard of these Phantom LUTs before. You know, I'll say this about me, and again, I don't know that this is a good thing, so I'm kind of telling on myself, right? I should show you guys some more LUTs in the background here while I'm doing this. Let's pop one up. So let's do feature. So I'm one of those people who I don't consume content within the space that I am, or I consider myself to be competing in. So for example, if somebody else, with the exception of Cam, so I'll say that, somebody else has a LUT pack, I don't want to be influenced by them or what they're doing or how they're doing it or what their style is. I want to try to keep myself unique enough and stick to my guns, if you will, on the whole idea of color theory, color contrast, in a way that helps me progress a story or a scene that is complementary and works well across all devices and monitors that are cheap as well as monitors that are really expensive, or where I can hand over a finished piece to an agency and know that the agency will not have to do any additional work and will call me back because they see a difference in what I can deliver versus what my competitors can deliver. That's how I treat myself, my company, and what it is that we do. So while I've heard and have seen many people comment on several of my videos or several of my social media posts about somebody else's LUT pack, I didn't buy them. I didn't try them. I didn't even look at them because I don't want that influence to then affect what it is that I'm doing. Because in case you guys haven't or didn't notice, every time that I've ever put out a LUT pack, whether it be the C200 LUT pack all the way to this new one, the naming convention is the same. And if you take the C200 LUT and apply it to C200 footage, and then you take these new LUTs and apply it to CLog3 footage, you're going to find that the matching process is a lot easier. And I've heard the other thing about Cinematch. I think that's the name of the company that makes some color space transforms to help you match different cameras. I don't want to put anybody on blast. They asked me for a sponsorship. I told them no. And because many of my friends kept insisting that this was a legit product, I then purchased it. So when I make a video, if I make a video, I might not, but if I make a video about Cinematch, I will show my receipt so that you guys can see that I truly did pay for them. And I took the exact same shot on the same lens at the exact same aperture, same ISO on a red Komodo and a Canon R5C. I used Cinematch to try to get them to match, and the colors are all over the place. And I didn't screw that up. I tried it multiple times with more than one scene, and Cinematch is just not good enough. At least not to try to match red Komodo to a Canon R5C. And because that took, 5-ish hours of work, I decided I'm giving up on Cinematch because I don't really want to waste the rest of my time. So again, I don't really look at other people's work, with the exception of Cam, because I don't want to be influenced as to how it is that I then make my own decisions when I'm applying what I know about color theory and about color contrast into the work that I do. So there you go. Hopefully you guys got to see quite a bit here, but I mean, what I should have done is I should have rendered these files with just the Canon provided LUTs so you guys can see the difference. And I'll just tell you that the difference is significant. It's, I guess the smaller the screen, the less significant it is. But even on cell phones, you can absolutely see the differences. So let's go back to comments. Let's see. Almost don't want to ask this question here, but any delivery in HDR seems traditional media is starting to take a backseat. YouTube. Okay, so yeah, that's a big can of worms. And the answer is that's not what these do. We do have a tool set that we use for HDR delivery, and we have maybe 4 clients at this point that we do that kind of work for. So I guess it's not ready for mainstream. But you're right, HDR is coming. It's just not standardized is really the problem. Once HDR does become standardized across what we can expect on a, say, TV and a monitor, and it becomes a single type of experience across multiple viewing sources, then we will tackle this and share our tools. But right now, the HDR work that we do is very focused on a very specific client for a very specific deliverable. And in case you guys want to know what that is, it's diamonds. It's a diamond company, and they specialize in lab mined diamonds. And that's the work that we do. And we create HDR content for them and for their devices so that their reps that are selling the diamonds to jewelry companies can show them, I guess, their pitch deck is the best way for me to describe the content that we're creating. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at there. And I agree. I think that HDR will at some point be mainstream. I'm not sure that 8K will be, but, economics and consumers, or the consumer market, is always going to push for the next reason to upgrade XYZ. So I think that that's where the push is. And if there was a way for all the different manufacturers to agree on a standard, then it would make all of our lives a lot easier. But right now, the fact is that HDR is the wild, wild west. Let's see. I'm ashamed to say that I have no idea how HDR grading works in HDR with YouTube. Okay. HDR with YouTube is, yeah, that's a topic all of its own. I'm going to leave that alone for now. Can you explain a little bit about the highlight shelving? Okay, I did that. Thank you, Bert, for bringing that up. Almost don't want to, yep, already talked about it. Thank you, though. I don't deliver in HDR because there's no way to control the image. We'll look on every, and that's really the problem. That's the problem across advertising, broadcast, and streaming services. Because all HDR doesn't work on YouTube. Only one type of HDR works on YouTube. Same thing is true for Vimeo. Same is true for Apple TV. I have no idea what the Amazon pipeline is because I've never delivered to Amazon or Amazon Prime Video, I guess is what that's called. I've never delivered to them. But Apple TV, I have. And again, their standards are very different from one another. What works on YouTube will not work on Apple TV. And I have no idea what kind of HDR actually works on Instagram at this point. C100. The C100 is, by all standards, for today's type of social media delivery, it's still overkill. But it is an older camera. And as I was saying earlier, consumers always want to buy the newest thing. And I think that's one of the main reasons why the whole camera department across companies has evolved so much. Let's see. So you're responding to Bob. Cool. Eduardo, yeah, I still have C100 Mark 1 and 2. Yeah, dude. I mean, this thing was a workhorse. And like I said, I mean, now it primarily functions as a webcam, for live streaming at clients. But the battery life's great. The file sizes are tiny by today's standards. and it just works. And it's got a 4K sensor that is downsampling to 1080, so live streaming looks phenomenal. Yeah, it's just pretty cool. Let's see. I love the file sizes. Yeah, file sizes are perfect for that camera. My greatest headache and mistakes were made in the area of not having someone do our taxes and switching between Inc. and LLC without any true reason knowing the advantage or disadvantages. So, yeah, we're going to be tackling some of the business side, I guess, of what it is that we all do in future episodes. But I'll tell you, from a very painful way of learning, I missed a tax bracket. Like, I went over a tax bracket by $21 because I didn't have a conversation with my CFO that was timely. And that was painful. So yeah, we're going to be talking about a lot of that in the future. Sorry if you answered this, Carlos. What color gamut work with your CLog3? So the color gamut is, let me just hang on one second. This will eliminate any possibility of me making a mistake, because I will be able to tell you exactly what I did here. So Canon CLog3 Cinema Gamut, look file is off and color matrix is neutral. Cool. It was Cinema Gamut, Bob. Cinema Gamut. In my opinion, Cinematch is the best use in their false color overlays, adjust exposure, temperature, tint, etc. Really handy for that quick turnaround. Yeah, I gave up on Cinematch when what it's supposed to be trying to do, it doesn't. It didn't work for me at that point, right? If Cinematch was truly trying to make, let's just use a super, super simple example, because this is where it failed for me. One of many ways that it failed for me. If in fact Cinematch is supposed to be able to take a clip that is coming out of Komodo and say blue is targeting blue and red is targeting red and green is targeting green. And now I want to match my Canon to red Komodo, and I apply the transform from CLog3 Cinema Gamut neutral to red IPP2 from Komodo, and the colors don't line up, then it's a waste of time. And that's what I found on my 5-ish hour test, which is why I'm saying it didn't do its job, because Cinematch implies it's going to match, and somehow there's a step somewhere in there that didn't do the matching. So I don't get it. Yeah, I figured it was the case. Just wanted to get a post from people here. Cool. Say lab mind, the bougie way of saying cubic zirconia these days. So no. And here's what's actually really interesting about diamonds, and I don't really want to get into the diamond conversation, but the whole idea that diamonds are rare, like the earth mined diamonds are rare, was actually a marketing campaign by the two companies that controlled all earth mined diamonds in the 1800s. Diamonds, in fact, are not rare. They're abundant. It's just how you choose to release them into the public that make them rare. And that perceived value is what allow them to maintain their price. But the short of the diamond story is that Earth mine diamonds are not just becoming extinct, but shrinking because the companies across the world that control or own the mines themselves are the ones that came up with the technology to produce lab mined. So if mining a 1 carat diamond costs them $5,000, with that same $5,000, they could produce 10 1 carat diamonds in their own labs without having to pay the middleman, the labor cost, the transportation, equipment, and so on and so forth. So Earth mined diamonds in my timeline, before I die, will no longer be mined. I'll leave it at that. Late to the live, sorry, someone asked this already. Do you have a LUT that resembles Sony S Cinetone? Sony S Cinetone. I buy the Sony pack if that's what you want. But if you want a Canon camera to look like a Sony camera, then I'm going to be the first one to tell you should buy a Sony camera. Also on the Gamut, you should put Cinema Gamut in the store description. Yeah, Bob, I finished rendering the files that I'm sharing in this live 5 minutes before the live started. And I had to push it back by 30 minutes. So yes, I will be updating the content in the store, the description in the store, stills and video of what these LUTs do and what they look like very soon. Still works. Glad you made it, man. So you had a day of filming yesterday. How'd that go? So Common, the power tool bits. Pure carbon, the most abundant element on the planet. Diamonds aren't rare at all. That's true. They're not. They're not. And they do create a lot of hardships for a lot of people, especially in Africa. And that is horrible. Cool. Well, I don't know how long we've been on this, but thank you all for the thumbs up. I appreciate the support. Whoever gave me the thumbs down, if you have any feedback or criticism as to how I could improve, I would appreciate it and would enjoy hearing about it. If you guys are taking these LUTs or using these LUTs out in the wild and you can provide any kind of feedback or share screen grabs or small clips that you're okay with me sharing on social media or in future YouTube videos, I would really appreciate that. For everything that you guys do and give back to me as a creator in this community, I appreciate you all. And I don't know if there's any other. Let me just see if there's any one other that I really, really wanted to show you guys. La La Land is awesome. Dreaming is new also. Nostalgia, Netflix. These are just basically revamped versions. Sunny, Tando, Urban, Tress. Tress is new. So the 3 new LUTs are Tress or Tres, La La Land, and Dreaming. And La La Land is still probably one of my favorites. Punch It, believe it or not, this is still, it looks really rough, right? Especially in this scene. But once we move past this scene, let me go here, just speed it up a little bit. Like, I have friends that shoot MMA, and this LUT makes every single one of the athletes look that much more badass. And they tell me about it all the time when they use this LUT, because it is in their face. You can't avoid me. This is who I am. And it's really, really cool. So I like this LUT quite a bit, because whatever it is that you want the audience to focus on, there's no way they're going to avoid it. There's just no way. Yeah. And it does really well with shadows, and it does really well with detail without crushing all the detail in the dark areas. So that's kind of cool. Two-tone, where's my two-tone? Here it is. This is another one that basically just takes complementary colors and it makes them stand out, and it drops the saturation on all the secondary colors. And this is another one that I like to use, especially for like construction company type work. I like to use this LUT quite a bit because it helps me, like if they're building a house, for example, it helps the wood in the house pop, so you can see sort of the craftsmanship that they're doing or they're putting behind their own work. So yeah, it's kind of cool. And again, if you guys are out in the wild and you guys are end up using these LUTs and you can share or tag me, I would really appreciate it. So really, really enjoy all of you. And I think at this point, let's see, thanks for the chat. Cool. Yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. Sorry, LUTs. Cool. Thank you. Hey, no problem about the question, man. It's just, the only cameras that I ever attempt to sort of create looks for. So like, for example, if I'm shooting on the R5C and this is my C cam or my B cam, well, it can't be my B cam because I have more than one Komodo. So if this was my C cam or doing the gimbal work, or if I throw that on a drone, then my job really is to try to match what I'm getting out of a red. So the only time I ever take a camera brand and then try to match it to is really something like a Canon to red, or back in the day, a Sony to a red. Never really a Sony to a Canon or a Canon to a Sony. They're kind of in the same price point. And really the best way to get matching cameras is to buy more than one copy of that camera. So I've never really done that. So yeah, cool. No worries there. Thank you, Richard. Really appreciate you. Saludos de Venezuela. Saludos. Appreciate your knowledge and experience. Thank you, man. Thank you. And thanks everybody for joining. So again, thank you all for being a part of this community. And I will catch up with you guys in the next live stream. Take care.